Welcome to the Chief Aim podcast. This is your weekly dose of real experiences, insights, strategies, and action steps for entrepreneurs who want to build and are building something incredible. All right, guys, welcome back to the Chief Aim podcast. I'm Jason Graystone.
And I'm Seb Bates.
There you go. And this is another episode where we're going to do a versus series. So first of all, I just want to appreciate everyone who's been listening so far. And if you've been sharing the podcast, great. You know, the first 3 episodes went down really, really well, and we've been blown away by the feedback. So it's really cool that you're getting value. We like doing these as well. So believe it or not, this is a great time for two guys to get together and just have a chat and a rant. And we get a lot of value from doing it as well. One of the things I really look forward to in the week, actually. So thanks for joining us. And we've been doing this versus series. And this week, what are we talking about, Seb, in terms of versus?
This week is scarcity versus abundance. So I guess it's kind of similar, right? About mindset. A lot of the stuff we talk about is mindset because it's kind of, it is totally crucial to entrepreneurship. And a lot of the stuff we've talked about is the ups and downs and the ability to stay centered throughout those ups and downs, and how emotion comes into entrepreneurship and how to deal with it. The scarcity versus abundance is a really interesting one because it's not just the emotions around things. Often it's deep rooted, traits that have been implanted in us from a young age through our parents, maybe their parents and their parents' parents. And then also the decisions we make, right? And the way that we approach everything from, how we take risks to how we plan for the future, long-term, short-term, all this sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a really interesting topic.
It is, and it does. When it comes to one of the key things that I think where it's really important that it kind of goes under the radar, but ends up having really detrimental effects on people's goals is the language that they use in terms of scarcity and abundance. So just for anyone listening who's thinking, well, what is scarcity and what is abundance? It's really a mindset. It is a frame of mind and an outlook, and the kind of the oldest way to explain it is kind of the cup half empty, cup half full type thing, where if the cup's half empty and you see it half empty, you are trying to survive and you're trying to stop it going empty. Whereas if the cup's half full, you're thinking about, wow, I've got lots of room for growth. I've got lots of cushion room, and you're kind of more looking forward rather than looking to survive. You're thriving rather than surviving. And that's really the difference between the two. And where it comes out in language, where I've seen it, is it's the type of people, and this might be you, I've spoke to people before where they've stopped in their tracks and gone, bloody hell, that is me, I should stop doing that. And it's kind of the people that are like the ones who either embrace change and they're like happy for changes and they like changes, which not many people do, by the way, or the people that fear change, really fear change, like that. That's what I would say. And you could call it a fixed mindset, growth mindset, abundance, scarcity. But the people that fear change, they're usually the ones living in scarcity because they're scared of something. Whereas an abundant mindset is open to new ideas and AI and all that kind of stuff.
I feel what would you say? Yeah, I love the way you explain that. I think scarcity mindset is basically a belief that resources are limited, right? Yeah. And a belief that you might lose what you've got. And I think that leads to fear. It leads to hoarding. It leads to unhealthy competition. I think that the opposite of that, right, is that there's lots to go around for everyone. And it's, you shouldn't worry that you're going to lose what you've got necessarily, or at least not over worry that you're going to lose what you've got. And I think that level of mindset leads to more generosity. I think that people who have an abundance mindset, they give more, they collaborate more, they create new partnerships, they innovate more, they have a lot more fun. And one of the things I say to people is when someone's got a scarcity mindset, like I can walk into a room now and I'm like, I can almost smell scarcity in the air, right? And it's a little bit like you can have a conversation with someone and then, 5 minutes into it, you're like, or even 5 seconds into it, you can be a bit like, I think this is coming from a place of scarcity. Yeah. And so often I kind of sit with someone and I'm like, right, before I even talked about that, like what's going on in the head? Because are you worried you're going to lose this, or are you worried that there's too much competition, or are you worried that there's not enough resources, or whatever it is, right? And it's and I mean there are practical things you can do, which is a lot of the stuff that I've learned, through the Tears of Freedom program and other stuff that I've been a part of, which remove a massive layer of scarcity, right? And one of the easiest ways to remove scarcity mindset from your system is having like a cash buffer, right? Because people with a cash buffer are actually more fun to do business with. Like you and me, right? We've created these tiers within our lives to protect us financially, and that's kind of freed up our mindset not to worry about month to month, which means that we can start to take more risks. We can start to do more collaborations. We're not putting all our eggs in one basket and then super worried if it's going to go right or wrong. Yeah. And I was saying this to Vicky earlier. I was like, when I started out in business, every month I had to make it work, right? And you're kind of forced to have a scarcity mindset when you're a startup, because you just don't have any other way to do anything. And it's a scary time. And then what I've learned almost 15 years into running businesses, that you develop your skills as an entrepreneur and you start to play a game more. And actually it's really good fun. And entrepreneurship becomes really good fun because you're just playing a game, rather than fighting every single month through a scarcity mindset. You're playing a game and you're leveraging an abundance mindset to do that. So those are my kind of initial thoughts on it all.
Yeah. I was going to touch on that myself. And I think everyone has a scarcity and abundance threshold, and it is heavily linked to the financial situation. So I'm sure if you're listening, there's been a time where either your business bank account or your personal bank account or your net worth or whatever it is has dropped below a certain level. And when you go below that level, you tighten up, you feel a little bit poor, stressed, you can't focus on family things, you've got all these things going on, and you start going, right, I've got to get creative and start making more money, and I've got to figure out how to save until the point where you get to this kind of upper level where you go into abundance mode, and it's like, wow, we'll go and buy this and buy that, and what happens is you become complacent and you take your foot off the gas, and it's not this consistent growth. It's basically scarcity, abundance, and you go and spend, and a lot of people spend their whole lives in that cycle. The key is to have the cash cushion so that you never go below that level ever, and you never ever, you just get it just above that scarcity level and never ever spend it. And then when you have that there, you level up, because I always say, right, the higher level represents your goals and the lower level represents your standards. And I say all the time, you've probably got loads of pay rises in your life to go up with inflation and things like that. But the chances of ever taking a pay cut, you've probably taken one pay cut, maybe none. And that's because that's your standard. So you always hit your standard. So to get out of scarcity, it's about just having enough there that's above that level that makes you go into that feeling of, oh crap, all I can think about is my business at the moment now, because I've got to survive rather than thrive.
Yeah. And it doesn't even need to be like a massive buffer, does it?
No.
I mean, if you look at it this way, right? Like, it's interesting what you said about the money side of things as well, because I think a lot of people, they did, not only is it with their personal expenses, but also with their business expenses, right? They max out everything and they don't leave much margin left in to protect the business, but also to protect them personally. And I mean, if you had £1 million in the bank and you were, before you were worried about, on the hundreds of pounds, right? Whether or not you're going to make an extra few hundred or a few hundred less. And that was causing you stress. And that was your scarcity mindset. If you had £1 million in the bank, you wouldn't even be thinking about that. You wouldn't care. If you were working on the thousands, again, you wouldn't care, right? So I think it's interesting when you eliminate the financial stress, suddenly you have a more abundance mindset, that's for sure. But it's also it also makes me laugh how, and I think you've got to have a sense of humor of it, right? Because it's just part of human nature, abundance and scarcity mindset. But it's amazing to me how it infiltrates everything in people's lives. And I've really tried to spot it. I try to spot it with other people, but also with myself. And I always have a laugh about it with my mates, because it's one of those things that's easy to see. when things are given out for free, a lot of people, most likely down to their previous programming from their parents and their parents' parents, it's like they can't say no to the free thing, right? If something's free, like even if it means, let's just say you're going through you're going through the high street and someone gives you, you're going to be walking for an hour, but they give you they give you like a free TV, right? And the TV might be 30 quid, like a cheap, whatever it is, right? Or it could be in a big box, but you're not going to turn down the 30 quid thing, even though it means that for the next hour, you're going to be lugging around this massive box, right? Yeah. And I mean, that's just one example. Another example would be, like I think I did a video on this on Instagram recently, but you go on a plane and they give you obviously unlimited drinks on a plane. You can have a glass of wine, beer, whatever you want. A lot of people, because they feel like it's free or they feel like they need to get their money's worth, will go out of their way. They'll exit the plane, either drunk or a bit hungover, and have a really bad day because basically they were given unlimited resources and their scarcity mindset was like, I've got to maximize the free thing. Yeah. And really, instead of approaching it like, what is the I've been given this opportunity, what is the prime amount, like the perfect amount of what I want from that? Right now, it could be one glass of wine and a cup of coffee, and you are so happy, and you're actually in a better place than the 4 glasses of wine and 2 coffees because you're worried you're going to be too sluggish when you get off the plane, right? And then you see it with everything, and it's. I just came up with a term for that when you said it: the buffet mindset. You know, like the all-you-can-eat buffet. People's eyes are too big for their stomachs. My mum. It's so true. Like, going in with there's not enough here. Not enough to go around. I better get what I can whilst I can. And that is a perfect example of. And people don't finish their plates. Yeah, right. That's the end result. If whatever, and that kind of metaphor trickles down to everything in life. People are taking as much as they can because it's free, but not finishing their plates. Yeah, because they don't need it, right? Absolutely. The other thing I see people do where I can really recognize a scarcity and abundant mindset is when it comes to sharing knowledge. You get a lot of entrepreneurs go, well, I don't want to give all my stuff away. I don't want to give it away for free, or I don't want to share this or that, or I don't want so and so to figure this out. Well, I've always been of the opinion that there's no such thing as competition. There's only partners. So you just focus on doing your best, and you be unique, and you do you. And I don't even know if I've got competition. I don't even know who they are, what they charge, if they even exist. I don't care. I'm not in a category where there's competition, and that's because I just focus on me and building great partnerships with people I love doing business with. And I've definitely found that the more you share, the more you get paid. It's as simple as that. Like that, and on competition as well. It's interesting because I often think that if people just focus on themselves instead of their competition, they put 80% of their focus on themselves rather than 80% of it on the competition. They'd be more creative. They'd have more fun. They'd be innovating more. Their customers would benefit more. They'd create a better product or service, and they would end up growing the business more. I think it was Jeff Bezos who said, he had some sort of quote about this, and it was something along the lines of, focus. If I could go back, I would just focus all my attention just on the customer and not on the competition. Or that was one of their strengths. I can't remember which way around it was. Yeah, but it's amazing, right? That's that 100% focus. And also, I think people are worried that people are going to copy, and the reality of that is, I think you're always going to have a thought leader and a copycat. Right? Like there is always going to be someone who's copying someone out there. But the reality is it is quite easy to tell. As soon as you sign up to the copycat stuff, it's like, well, there's less innovation. It becomes quite clear once you've been with them for a while where the innovation is coming from, who the thought leader really is. And I think if people want to do really well in business, they should be doubling down on being the thought leader, being the person who comes up with the ideas and implements and tests things and tries things and tries to be the first in the market to do it, right? Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's another scarcity thing where it's the fear of doing that and looking like you don't know as much as you think that you should, when in actual fact, people don't care. People prefer to share a genuine journey than a kind of fake Tony Robbins kind of thing. It don't bode well. You can smell it a mile off. And it's short-lived.
you're always going to be 10 steps behind the person who actually wakes up loving doing that and doing that every day and every hour. You'll always be a step behind. So this is a quick shout out to the sponsor of this show, Shield, who help us deliver this podcast along with all the social media that goes with it to help us get it out to more people, which leaves us to focus on just creating more great conversations. If you want to start, delegate, or optimize your social media or podcast, or if you want to build your very own online course or program, get in touch with the team at shieldglobal.io. Yeah, don't do that, right?
So I think there's some really obvious cures for a scarcity mindset. I think the first thing is spotting yourself, right? When you have it, because even if you're a Jedi, you're still going to creep in now and again. Do you know what I mean? It'll be like,
yeah,
I'm not making this decision from the right place, and so I would just sleep on the decision and not make it from a scarcity place, or not overthink a subject if you're in scarcity mode. I mean, it doesn't take much to throw someone into scarcity mode, right?
Again, that is also the lower level of your bank balance or your net worth or whatever. We've all got one of those. You can get to your low level might be 10 million. And you start feeling scarce at 10 million. I know someone who's happy to go about 30 grand in debt, and this is always negative. And when they go 40, 50 grand in debt, they start thinking, oh crap, I'm a bit strapped. But when they go like 15 grand, 10 grand in debt, they're like, I'm going to go and get some more debt. And they're happy in that zone. Right.
Wow. But that's interesting as well when it comes to business, because ultimately, if you can leverage finances to grow your business, you'll grow it at a faster rate. But for a lot of people, the idea of taking on millions of pounds of debt, and this is something we've recently taken a bunch of new debt to expand into new countries, and it does test your scarcity abundance mindset, right? Because if it doesn't go well, what are you going to do? You still owe all that debt, and a lot of the debt people get is it's got personal guarantees on it. So I think it's really interesting when you say that. But some of the most successful people out there, they've got a very high tolerance of risk, and they've got a very high tolerance, or the level you were explaining. For them, they're happy to take on that extra risk in order because they believe in the product or service.
Definitely. I would encourage this though. Like if anyone is getting to that lower level where they're going into a scarcity mindset, because I've done it many times in my life. Like there's been times where I've sold off pretty much all of my possessions, like twice, 3 times over to start again, to get the capital in. And I've got no problem doing that. I'll do that tomorrow. Like I would literally say that I'll do it again tomorrow. And I know that it pays off over time.
I don't think you give up your guitars.
Yeah. But if you are at that level, I would say no matter how tempting it is to touch your savings or break into your your safe buffer, don't. I would always say serve your way out of that problem. Get creative and go, how can I create something new? I've got to get my fingers to the floor now and really like get something done. And go and serve my way out of this situation. Because if you start asking yourself, how can I serve my way out of this situation, you'll get the answers. And just like that, the money will come in because you've gone and done what you needed to do, rather than
you're being forced.
And again, growth mindset, abundant mindset, not a scarcity. I better take my savings and hope I'm on my last legs kind of thing. That's not the way to go.
It's really good advice. It's like we talked about during COVID. Do you remember we were saying
exactly.
We felt so creative because COVID was forcing us to innovate in a time where you just couldn't do anything like you normally would. But like I was going to say, it doesn't take much to throw someone into scarcity mindset. Like you have a bad night, you only have a couple hours sleep, and then you wake up to a couple of issues, and suddenly a big project falls through, and suddenly you get a massive bill for something else, and boom, doesn't matter who you are, you have to battle that balance between scarcity and abundance. And I think timing the decision is really crucial, right? Parking things to the right time is really crucial. And other things that I felt that have really helped have been fostering gratitude, like a practice of gratitude. I often find that if I'm going through scarcity mindset, I won't lie to myself and tell myself everything's going to be fine. Like we're going to make that deal, or do you know what I mean? I'll say to myself, but do I actually need it? Like, do I actually need that thing that I felt like I already had, which I feel like I'm losing, even though I never had? Do you know what I mean? It's like, do I need it? So what I'll do is I'll look at my life and I'll scale my life back on a piece of paper to the things that actually matter in my life. And I'll realize how easy it is for me to keep those things, right? A roof over our heads, like meals, the ability to for my kids to go to school, health, go to the gym, go on a dog walk, like these basic things in life, which I get the most joy out of than everything else. And it's like at a time where you think you need so much, you sometimes get shocked into the reality that you need very little. And
that's such a good point. Like, so scarcity can actually be fake based on your ego and what you feel like you should need, right? And I remember seeing 50 Cent when he was like, and a lot of this comes down to your values brought up as a child and what you didn't have, so you try and get it, and then you feel that you tie that to your self-worth. So the big house or the Ferrari or whatever, and it's so tied to your self-worth, like in this kind of fake way, superficial way, that you really go into scarcity for no reason. And I remember 50 Cent, he was like, I bought this house because my friends thought I should have this house and I wanted the house. I never had anything. And he said, I realized one day that there was no one there, and I'd go over to like the East Wing and be switching the switch and the lights wouldn't work. And that had cost me the maintenance call out and all this. And he's like, man, I just wanted a 2-bedroom apartment. Like he just said, I just wanted the Jetsons, I didn't want this massive house. And I realized that I'd got it because I felt that I should have it because all of my friends were telling me I should have it. And there you go. You're in scarcity mindset for no reason. And gratitude definitely is that.
It's crazy, isn't it? It reminds you of Fight Club a little bit. There's that quote from Fight Club, isn't it? I can't remember what it is. He became a slave to his own apartment or his own appetite for appliances or something. Do you know what I mean? It was like he was in a constant revolving. You got to earn things, to have things, to impress people that aren't even interested. And it was like the more things you gather in your life, the more stress or potential for stress you actually have.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny, really.
It is. So just to round off, I guess, let us know if you've experienced in the comments abundance, scarcity mindset. If you know anyone, maybe this could help someone. If you want to share this podcast episode to them, it really, really help us. But tips, I guess, is just always collaborate. Think about the gratitude thing was great. Collaborate with people and form partnerships with people without this fear that they're going to copy you. Share your knowledge freely. That's really worked out well for me. I can't emphasize enough. Just sharing your stuff freely, like this podcast, is always gonna pan out well. It's all about implementation, and most people won't copy. And even if they do copy, it's implementation, right? It's execute, and that's where they won't. They'll struggle. They'll fall down. And just always think, there will always be more. There's always enough to go around. It's not like life isn't happening to you. You are a master of life. You're the driver of your body, which you can pretty much create whatever you want in the world. So that would be my last kind of final thought for the session. Anything to add, Seb?
Yeah, I think it's a bit like I think it's a constant battle that human beings have. I think that the way to approach it is with a bit of a sense of humor, right? Like if you're meditating and you find yourself going off piste in your mind and you're suddenly thinking about something like emails or something you shouldn't be, because you should just be focusing on nothing, just your breathing. Then instead of kind of telling yourself off and not focusing, just kind of smile at the monkey brain and be like, okay, cool, let's get back on track. And I feel the same way with the scarcity mindset. If you notice yourself, because you're a human being, naturally going off piste and suddenly having a scarcity mindset, just recognize it first of all for what it is, and don't make a decision in the moment which could negatively impact you. But also, I think I may have mentioned this in one of the other podcasts as well, but I always use this system of thank you for the thoughts, right? Where I basically write down the good thoughts, the bad thoughts, whatever it is, because all thoughts serve you. Like the scarcity mindset, which, we're having a laugh about it, but it can serve you, right? It could be highlighting a weakness within your game plan, a weakness within your finances, a weakness within your character, or a weakness within your your friendship group, whatever it is. So for me, it's like all those thoughts are there to serve you, but the way in which you process them, the timing might be bad. So thank you for the thoughts, and then come back to that notepad later and answer those questions. I think that really helps. The other thing I would say is find a way to be generous, right? So if you are going through something which is forcing you to have a scarcity mindset, and you're like, oh man, like, I'm not going to be able to afford this, not going to be able to afford that. You're basically thinking very, very selfishly in that moment, typically, right? Unless you're thinking this is going to ruin something for my family. The reality is, for most people, your family were never really aware of the obsession you've got with making the big deal or whatever, and how that was going to change things for you. They were pretty happy doing what they were doing. For most people, right? It's only the person out there who's trying to make the sale who actually cares about it. And so for me, it's like you're wrapped up in your own world, and that causes or exaggerates the scarcity experience. So when you go through that, try and do something generous for someone else that you don't benefit from, right? Now, it could just be helping someone out, or it could just be reaching out to 2 or 3 friends, asking how they are and trying to solve a problem for someone else. Even a 20-minute phone call where you don't talk about your own problems. For that 20 minutes, maybe you just talk about someone else's problems and how you can help them. And they often say, when you're focusing on your own problems, they feel stronger, they're more magnified because you're personally attached to them. But as soon as you focus on solving someone else's problems, you kind of forget about your own, and they shrink. And I think that's a really powerful thing, right? Like if you're a parent and your kids are sick, and you have no choice but to look after your kids and focus on looking after them, making sure they're okay, you kind of forget the fact that you got man flu, you got a cold, because your whole focus is like, how am I going to make sure these kids are okay and looking after their needs, right? And so you forget about your own problems. I think that's a really good little tactic to cure the scarcity mindset in the moment.
Cool. Just one more thing I'd love to get your opinion on, though, is in business in particular, because obviously there's a lot of business people, entrepreneurs, startups, solopreneurs, or whatever you want to call them. But there's a lot of people starting business going through that, where certain events happen in business where they do think it's the end of the world. Like, I don't know, like a really vital staff member leaves, or someone goes and some competitor props up, or something like that, right? And something where you go in this frame of mind where it's almost like a victim, like, why does this happen to me? Why does this happen to me? What would you advise someone in that situation?
So going in a situation where you're concerned that it's like you're almost feeling like the world's revolving around you a little bit with that, aren't you? Why is that to me? It's very much a victim mentality. And with that, one of the biggest things I can say about that when it comes to entrepreneurship and business is having a very, very long-term view. Ultimately we've got more control than we realize of the things around us that influence our lives. And I think that often we have this feeling of things impacting us rather than us impacting things. Yeah. And we vastly underestimate the power we've got to influence our environment, and we vastly overestimate the impact our environment has on influencing ourselves and our mindset, right? So one of the best ways I find with dealing with that is thinking longer term. I more and more now I see entrepreneurship like a career, whereas before it didn't feel like that. It felt a little bit like, I really love what I'm doing. It feels too good to be true to be when I compare to other people who have been running their businesses or doing a job they don't like, and I just love what I'm doing. It feels too good to be true. Am I going to lose it? All this sort of stuff. Now I look back over the last almost 13 years and I'm like, this is just a way of life, right? This isn't going anywhere. And suddenly you're a bit more calm. And I think also just looking at other people who have been in entrepreneurship for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and seeing what their approach is, and seeing the dips and finding out the dips in their life and then the success. And, the reality is nothing's linear, right? And you could lose everything, but it would teach you so much. And then you'd be bouncing back 5 times faster. And the next thing you build could be even better because of the experiences you've had. Yeah. So those would be my thoughts on that.
Amazing.
That would be a good.
Awesome. Well, look, it's almost half hour again. Really quick session. So it goes so quick. You can chat for hours. So if you guys have got any other versus topics that you want us to cover, put them in the comments. If you are getting value from this podcast, please leave us a review. That'd be ace. And until next time, take care. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you then. If you're enjoying these podcasts, Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're really getting value from these, we'd really love it if you could let us know on our review page. We'll see you next week.